into is before they do any of these clinical trials, right? There's so many steps to get here, right? So the drug development process for any drug, for any therapy, first you do discovery and development, then there's preclinical research, then there's clinical research, then there's the FDA drug review for them to give you a pass and say you could do it on, you could start small clinical trials on humans. And then there's the fifth step where you have post-market safety monitoring. Okay, so discovery and development, right? The first stage is you have to know the disease, right? You have to know what targets you want, the gene therapy or drug that you're doing, right? How it's absorbed, distributed, metabolized, secreted, right? Its benefits, right? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Before they start, obviously, with this drug development process, this is the thought that's going in, in the heads of researchers, and the mechanism of action, right? And then they also they do experiments to find the best dosage and see if there are any reactions with other compounds, right? So this alone can take 2-3 years, just the discovery and development of the drug itself. And then they do preclinical research, right? So before testing a drug on any human, right, researchers must find out whether it could cause harm, right? Is it toxic? So this is where they do a lot of animal studies, right? They do mice studies and mouse studies for 2-3 years and see and collect data, right? And if their data is positive, what they do is to get into the clinical stage, right? They have to write a detailed report about who was in this, like what they use in the study, the type of mice, facilities, equipment they use, protocols, procedures, reports. This is another 2-3 years, right? And then they go, and not a lot of drugs pass the preclinical research, right? They go back to them, and the FDA, committees, they say, okay, look, we saw this, but there's this aspect that we didn't like, fix it, right? Or do something that has better health outcomes. So there's a significant drugs that don't pass this process on the first try. If they do, right, the FDA says, okay, you passed the preclinical, I want to see what kind of clinical trial you're going to do, right? So this is where the researchers have to say, okay, we have to see who qualifies for this, right? Who are gonna be the participants, how many people, how long it's gonna last, how the drug will be given to patients, at what dosage, what assessments will be conducted, right? How they'll be conducted, and how the data will be reviewed and analyzed, right? So when the researchers come up with this, these are pages, right? And then they give it back to the FDA, and the FDA committees, they look at it and they say, okay, so 33%, I think, of the first time applicants go through to the clinical research. The FDA either says, okay, look, you have to modify this doesn't work, or if they think it's enough, they'll pass it on. And the clinical research has 4 stages, you guys. So there's the early stage, the second phase, the third phase, and the fourth phase. So there are different phases that go, and you increase the number of participants as you go, if you get positive results in your first early trial, that is.
All right. Sorry, I'm listening very heavily on this, but now I have a question. So is this for a cure, or is this for another treatment? Because you're talking about the first, second, third, and fourth stages and everything, but then you brought up the concept of, another drug being added on. Then I'm talking the bone marrow. Then we're talking about the chemo. Yeah. What is the end game? Is this for a cure, or is this for another treatment?
So this is for a therapy, right? For any drug or therapy. So for example, in this case, it's the cure, right? For like hydroxyurea, for example, right? It's a medication. I'm just talking about in generally any type of therapy that goes for any drug, right? For hydroxyurea, for example, it had to pass through every single stage of this process, right? So now this is going for sickle cell, for basically genetic engineering, right? For genetic engineering to go into a clinical trial, right? And then and the FDA says, okay, look, you've done your clinical trials. The clinical trials are done. We found positive results. Now it could be used for everyone who has sickle cell disease.